Is it not clickable?
No. There isn't no way to make a video.
Now maybe that's YouTube.
Can you email? Is it not? Can
Sorry.
you email Veronica the link? I'll just copy and paste it in the chat. No, it's not working. She was just typing.
Okay, so we are live on YouTube.
Yeah, it's off now.
Okay, it's fine.
It's okay.
Can you email her the link? And then she can paste it in
I'm
the chat.
trying a different way to see if it will copy and paste.
Oh, you know what, this mic's probably still on. Oh. I guess we just have open mics.
Hey, Gary.
How's everybody?
Good to see you.
How's the temperature in the room?
Good.
It ain't too hot? Let me turn it up. Stay 76.
It's fine.
Sister Joanne, how you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Been a while.
Yeah. It has.
Yes,
Frank?
try to link.
Hey, Gary, what's up, bro? Just doing my thing,
Almost didn't
man.
recognize you in that beard.
I know, the beard's got me going, brother. You want to log in?
I'm running two Zooms at once. With what?
The Zoom? Yeah. You just want to run your thing, fine.
You guys ready, or are you waiting on somebody or something?
We were waiting on you, Gary.
Oh, you were? Okay.
That's really waiting on you.
You're
Hey,
doing it.
today is Eid Mubarak, right? The Muslim community.
that's right, yeah.
Of the Ramadan.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can't go through the neighborhood without them stopping me. And I had to make a radio commercial. And one of the families just stopped me on the corner and gave me a big plate of chicken. I think I still smell like the barbecue smoke. But we're waiting on me. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Now, I've been vaccinated, got both my shots,
Me too. Me too. Me too.
and I'm gonna remove my mask.
Yes.
Well, the
so that I
CDC
can-
said you could today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're
Thank you.
trying to-
Oh, you
And,
still have yours on? Okay. I don't know. Is everybody okay?
It's on.
Yeah. We take it off if you
TV
want.
on the Zoom is not hearing you. We don't hear it.
Oh,
Other than
okay,
your
good.
regular.
Okay. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody to the Reverend Ernest Franklin Smith Quality Life Learning Center and to the East Side Grassroots Coalition rehabilitation or rehab or revitalization or, new start. And the city of Erie. Certainly is a part of trying to broaden our vision of the Mclellan Fairmont Parkway intersection with Eastside Grassroots Coalition. Happy to see some of the people that are here today. Our president, Ms. Linda Stevenson, and that is allowing me to take the mic and invite you all this evening and start the meeting. And again, where's my agenda? Okay, so I did a welcome, an overview. Hey, not rocket scientist stuff. That we care about our community like every other neighborhood in town. We recognize we're a little bit different than every other neighborhood in town. Nonetheless, we prioritize what we believe are things that are going to make our community a better place for us to live. And we've modeled ourselves after some of the success of other neighborhood organizations like the West Bayfront and the East Side Task Force, and with the Sisters of St. Joe's. And we recognize that the city, through their efforts under this administration, has expanded to also include a Central City area and Academy Marvintown area. And that's so we want to do our part. One significant thing in our neighborhood, we typically have a lot of youth involved. And that we recognize that our neighborhood is made up of a lot of public housing. We have a lot of abandoned industrial space and a lot of manufacturers and stuff like that. So, and a lot of urban farmers. We like to champion ourselves. We believe we have more community gardens in our neighborhood than anywhere in the city. And that because of the nature of the culture of many of the residents who live here. And so self-sufficiency is not a new thing for us. Working hard, work ethic is not a new thing for us. Being culturally diverse and inclusive is not a new thing for us. And so again, we thank all of you for coming. I'm going to turn the mic over to the city of Erie. They have a plan to take us through this evening that we want to come up with some action items and get your input on some things and hopefully come out of this meeting, with having made progress over the last strategic plan that our organization came up with. That. Anything else for the good of the order?
About the election, about voting.
Yes. Okay, that was on the agenda also. Introduction of any candidates. Okay. Do we have? And that was supposed to go after the presentation by the city. Okay. So we might as well get that out of the way. Do we have any candidates online? No, so we won't have to recognize any of them. Do we have any candidates in the House? Okay, so we have two, and let me see. We're not going to give them the mic, are we? No?
Hold on, Gary. If we're
going to introduce them.
okay.
Okay, we're going to introduce them, and but before I introduce them, I want to introduce Kathy Shaw, our city councilwoman, currently in office, serving the last few months of her term. She's not a stranger to us. She's been here before, and that she certainly contributed to the progress that we made. And we appreciate her being in her attendance here this evening. We also have, I don't see the candidates where they signed in. And there's
a separate form for candidates.
There's a regular attendance form. And I don't see them having signed in. What's your name, sir?
Alan Green.
Alan Green? Okay, Alan Green is running for
Magistrate District Justice.
Second Ward Magistrate District Justice. And that's that's the northern part of our neighborhood. The southern part of our neighborhood is the 5th Ward. And they also have a magistrate who's not up for election. But so we welcome Mr. Al Green. He's got a famous name. If he can sing like the Al Green, if he works like that guy sings, then he'll be all right. Also, we have one of our own, Ms. Depin Tomba. If she'll show her face again, and that she's running for school board. And she's been able to put herself in a position to be one of the first new Americans ever elected to a political office in our community. And so we want to remember both of them, as well as some of the other offices that are up. We have judgeships open on the state level, Supreme, Superior, and Commonwealth Court. We have the county executive's position open in our community. We have a judgeship open in our community. Our mayor, our current mayor, who's not a stranger to us either. He's been to our organization meetings. He's walked our neighborhood. He's shown an interest prior to being elected about what happens in our neighborhood. For the 4 years that he's been in office, he's not been missing in action. He's been a person that's been here several times. He's been responsive to some of the challenges or concerns that we've raised. He's on the ballot again, and we want to keep him in mind. And that we know that we also have city council. There are 4 seats open for Erie City Council. There are 4 seats open for Erie School Board. There's county council seats open, both in the 5th Ward and in the 2nd Ward. We have a sheriff race that's open. It's been kind of controversial in that, but we have many reasons that we want to vote this time around. And then we have magistrates, district justices, and constable races that are open also. So there are a lot of women on the ballot. There are a lot of minorities on the ballot. There are young people on the ballot. We have every reason to get up and get out and go vote for somebody in that. If you don't vote, then you don't have a right to complain. We're not telling you who to vote for, but we are challenging you to get up and get out and vote. Exercise your right. It's a privilege. It's an opportunity to have your voice be heard, and we can't challenge you enough that if you're 18 years of age and you're registered to vote, don't be a person that sits back and watch somebody you wanted to win lose by 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 votes because you didn't vote. I served on the Erie School Board 2 terms, 8 years. The first time I ran, I won by 118 votes. I was the last name on the ballot on the bottom line. Every vote counts. Get out and vote Tuesday, May 18th, election day. With that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ms. Kathy Rosnick from the city of Erie, and she will carry us through the next part of our agenda, and will make any introductions of the staff or the people that came along with her from the city. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I too have been vaccinated, so I'm going to follow the guidelines, take my mask off. So I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, either in person or online. We've got a couple of people, and I appreciate. I appreciate that we had a little, the hybrid meetings are still a challenge for us. Frank Camilla, our media specialist for the city, does a fantastic job of maneuvering through all of these ideas. He's pretty awesome. We go to him and say, hey, I've got this idea. Can you make it work? And he's like, yeah, we make it work. And so it's very nice to have him working with the city and always willing to step up and help us. So appreciate everyone who's watching online and who's ventured out this evening. What a beautiful day to finally we got one. I also want to recognize really the 2 other people with my staff that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Erin Carey, our neighborhood planner, she's hiding off in the corner. You will see her later in the presentation. And then Megan Bennett is our Mayor Corps Vista, and many of you have seen her on and off at some of our meetings, but they really do, make things like this possible, and will be the champions along with me and the Eastside Grassroots Coalition and the rest of the city hall in coming up and making sure that the recommendations that come out of this process get implemented. And so that's really what we're here to do. What we've started doing, this will be the 3rd strategic plan that we've undertaken in the past 3.5 years. We wanted to be further along than we are, but the pandemic changed everything, right? So we put the brakes on, we slowed down a bit, and gave us all time to sort of assess and manage what the pandemic had to throw at us. But now we're back at it in Fairmont, Mclellan, which is what this planning area is called. Many of you probably don't. I mean, you know what Fairmont Parkway is, you know what McClellan Park is, and but that's what this planning area is called. So a little bit about tonight. We are undertaking a strategic plan. Our partner in this work is the Eastside Grassroots Coalition. It's very important for the city when we're doing these granular groundwork or grassroots planning efforts is to partner with people like you. It makes our job easier, and it makes the outcome of this work much more beneficial. So tonight, this is the kickoff. We're just starting, even though we've been talking about this with Eastside Grassroots Coalition for many, many months. But again, the pandemic, we just wanted to get past it and get to a place where we could start meeting in person before we undertook it. But this is the kickoff meeting to a strategic planning process. And the agenda tonight is we're not going to get in depth, deep about specific projects. We just want to kind of get a sense of the direction that we need to take, get input from you here and online. and then continue to work the plan with our partners with Eastside Grassroots Coalition. That's what we'll be doing. I'm also going to take an opportunity tonight to present to you a plan that was just completed during the pandemic. Would not be something I would recommend, is to do a major planning initiative with the community during a pandemic. Hopefully we won't ever have to do that again. But we did do one, and I think it's a very good plan. It's called the Active Erie, which is a bike pedestrian plan for the entire city. So I'm going to take this opportunity to present it to you, so you can see what's being planned for the areas in which you live. And then Aaron's going to take us through some surveys and data. So we have been doing data collection even before we started, and we assessed property, sidewalk conditions, and things like that. So she's going to talk to you about that, and then follow up with what happens next. So a little bit about the planning process. Aaron, you're getting so good, you know exactly.
I know, I'm with you.
For me. So the planning areas that I refer to are defined within the city's comprehensive plan that was finished in 2016 called Erie Refocused. And in that plan, it broke down the city into 17 planning areas, gave them names. Some people recognize the name, some people say, I've never heard that name. We're just going to go with it and follow the planning terms that were used in Erie Refocused, but you call your neighborhood however you call your neighborhood. We're not trying to change that. So Fairmont, Mclellan, you can see in that horrible highlighted, I was drawing it this morning. I'm like, oh, this is not working. But Fairmont, Mclellan essentially follows the boundaries that the Eastside Grassroots Coalition has sort of claimed as theirs and championed. The other areas that, before you go, the other areas that we have done strategic plans is in that East Bayfront, so the lower east side, just east of downtown. That was our first strategic plan. And we worked with a number of stakeholders, because you have a number of neighborhood groups that work in that area. And then we went down to Academy, Marvintown, and did a strategic plan with that group, and they're all very different. Fairmont, Mclellan, what's very unique about this area is Eastside Grassroots Coalition has their own strategic plan. So we're not coming in and changing that. We're taking the work and the process that we do to create these strategic plans, and we're marrying it with the priorities and the mission that was embodied in your own strategic plan. So that's why this is kind of an exciting time for us, because this is the first time that we will have done that. So we're trying to sort of marry the two ideas and see what we can come up with. And it changes. So East Bayfront, high concentrations of very blighted and abandoned properties. So those recommendations in there really focus on how to best address blight and abandonment, but create assets in its wake. Academy Marvintown is not challenged as much with that sort of issue. So our outcomes were, we need some more property maintenance, we need the sidewalk. Bakersfield is very important to us, and we would like some more gateway signature pieces. And so we've been working with them, and if you've driven up and down State Street recently, you've seen the work of that group and the new planner boxes that have Academy, and that was an outcropping of the plan, but there's more to come. This will be very different. I think we're going to have some youth development, we're going to have some youth engagement projects as part of this, and we really look forward to doing that. So that gives you a sense of where we'll eventually get to everyone. So we've been really challenging ourselves to really think about community engagement public meetings in a very different way. I've been a planner for, I say 20 years, I'm probably lying now, because I feel like I said 20 years for 5 years. So it's probably 25 years, but it makes me feel old. I've been a planner for a very long time, and we've realized that a lot of times, and I'm going to talk about why plans fail and make sure that we keep ourselves in check and make sure that this plan is not going to be one plan. But I want really, what we've gotten wrong is how we do community engagement in public meetings. So we're flipping that sort of upside down on this meeting. We're going to test this out, because I think this is the right direction. Because what we want to know from you is during your day, and Aaron, for those who are watching online on Zoom, there is a survey motion. So we just handed out a survey, which is very brief. We're going to ask everyone to spend the next 5 minutes or so filling out this survey. We're going to collect them. And then online, you're going to get a link that you'll be able to fill out this survey as well. So again, we're really putting our technology to the test, and we're changing things up a little bit. So if you would, what we want to know, you'll see the questions, the day in your life, for those who are watching and not filling out the survey. The questions that we should be asking at public meetings is, where do you go? How do you get there? What's the best part of your day? What's the worst part of your day? And how can we help? It's not, tell us how we should fix roads. We have people for that in City Hall. It should be, tell us how we do things that you have engineers and planners decide. We want to know what you do on a daily basis and how the city can help. So we've asked, we've set the stage of what's a day you would like. So if you wouldn't mind spending about 5 minutes filling this survey out, we're going to collect them and then we're going to talk a little bit more about some other initiatives. So I wish I had music to play, but I don't. So we're just going to do a little event space right now.
Like, I don't go to the doctor every day. Did you still check that out? That's not something.
A typical day. I'm sorry, as you're asking questions, I should answer them. So a typical day in your life, where you're going. You don't have to.
Well,
There is
that's
no
not
wrong
going to come up.
answer. So you pick what day you want to tell
So
us
people
about.
who's watching the stream.
But we want people to click the link and take the
Yeah,
survey
who are
themselves.
in the.
Mhm.
Okay.
There are students who are on the chat. And students and you respond to them.
General meeting?
Hmm?
Would you call it just the general meeting?
Saying to make the neighborhood better. And the city is still better. We're asking, some of the kids are asking in the
About
chat.
summer job.
No, we're gonna hire kids, and we've had some of them get on, they wanna know what the meeting is about. We wanna tell them to listen and learn. That's
Okay.
one thing. It's about community engagement. It's about having your opinion heard. Yes, okay. I just got handed the mic, and I had to open my mouth, but this is teamwork.
You can
We have a
start.
lot of young people in the chat asking about the meeting. One of the points I made originally was the number of young people we have involved in our neighborhood revitalization efforts. We have to train them to be the leaders of tomorrow. And many of them are responding to an opportunity to have employment for the summer in this neighborhood. What are some of the things that need to be done in this neighborhood that we can get young people involved in? Cutting grass, and watching some of the kids that are not going to get out of the neighborhood, but are going to stay in the neighborhood. Trying to re-engage kids into schoolwork and academics and stuff like that. So for the young people who are listening, this is great on your part, in that you have an opportunity to listen and you have an opportunity to give your opinion. The mayor is listening. The mayor's planner is listening. The city is listening. What do you want in our neighborhood? How do you go about your day? And that. So all of these are important questions. All of your answers are important. There's no bad or wrong or stupid answer at all. And none of your questions are. So we're asking you to trust us and to bear with us and to stay engaged and let your voice be heard. And if any question that you don't have, that you don't have an answer to and you don't understand, put the question in the chat. We'll do the best we can to answer it for you. Thank you.
And we didn't even need to sing during that downtime. That was perfect. Well, I'm gonna continue then, let the presentation come back up, because I think everyone's hopefully getting through your survey. Read a few more minutes. There's a front and back. Thank you. everyone online, all the kids were asking, young people, excuse me, I don't know how we were. As you were getting the explanation from Gary, hopefully you saw the link to the survey and you can take that alongside everyone else and you can continue to fill it out as we continue our discussion. Your answers for those online, if you could respond, and we will have some intriguing questions coming up, but if you have questions or if you could respond in the chat, that would be great. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about why plans fail, because I think it's a cautionary tale for me as a planner, for the city who has a planning department, and for us as we engage in this planning process. Like I said, I've been doing this work for way too long, some days, but how many times have we heard, you complete this plan, it's going to sit on the shelf and nothing will get done. And so I can tell you, I don't want to start down a path and spend time doing anything that won't accomplish something. And I've learned in my time, and I think this is all very sort of reasonable understanding of why do we have plans that exist like that? Why do they sit on the shelves? And again, this is a cautionary tale, so let's make sure our plan doesn't sit on the shelf. So why do they typically plan? Well, there is a famous quote that planners learn in planning school, which does exist, because Megan's going to go join urban planning professionals eventually as she goes into school. But there is school for this. It said, make no little plans. They do not inspire. So the charge was, make it grand, make it big, think to the moon and back. We wanted aspirational, long-reaching plans that built monuments to everyone. And what we found, and so we did, we always wanted to think about growth and progress and big. But what happens is sometimes that's really not what this community needs or is ready for. It's unrealistic. It takes too much money. Where is the money coming from to do that big idea? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't think big. It means, what's the small thing that we can do tomorrow? What are we willing to do? And what do we really want? It's also a problem when the plan doesn't meet the needs of the community in which you're addressing. The plan is not supported. No one asked me the question. We didn't have a meeting like this. I didn't get to provide input. And so that is another reason why plans fail. It's also not supported. So too many times you get through a planning process and we say, okay, we're done. If you hired a consultant, you paid your consultant, they say, thank you very much. Here's all your data. Here's a big shiny document. If that plan is not adopted through the elected official, whoever your elected official, whatever body is your adopting body, how do you know as a staffer, as a works director, as the engineer, as the community economic development person, how do you know that you're supposed to follow that plan? So these plans should always be supported by the community and servers, supported by elected officials who sign off, and Kathy Shaw, who is here tonight, we already recognized her. She knows this process well. Every time there's a plan done, there is a resolution that goes to city council that's saying, that has them sign off and say, we support this plan. So what that means is in the future, if we see a budget line item, or if we see a work crew out there doing something in a park, and it's part of the plan, they have officially signed off on that being done. It seems simple, but I can tell you, not only Erie, but most communities I've worked in, that step is missed. So if you don't have the official stamp of approval from the community, from the city, or where the township that you live in, that this is the plan that they want to see happen, it's not going to happen. So as we're going through this, sorry, Frank.
I'm just going to keep following you around, Kathy. Don't you worry.
As we're going through this process now and over the next 4 or 5 months, about what it'll take to finish, we're going to continue to check in on ourselves. And when I say we, it's the city and the Sidewalk Coalition, which is what we refer to as our core team. We have to constantly remind ourselves, what are we trying to achieve? And what are we willing to do to achieve it? So I can tell you, I don't have a big bank account sitting behind me to do anything we're going to talk about tonight. But if we have a supported initiative that this community wants, and the city says, yep, we need to do that, that gives us leverage to go after grant dollars. It gives us leverage to support these grassroots coalition to go after a grant that they can apply for. What we also find out through this planning process is we have resources to address blight, to address property maintenance violations, to address roads and sidewalks. We have resources. The city, that's a service that the city provides. What we find through this process is you help us tell us, prioritize where that could go. We can't do everything all at once, but where should we start based on what you think is the most important area that you're walking, the most problematic property that is vacant and blinded and abandoned. We can't do it all, but you help us actually prioritize, and Aaron's going to show you what that looks like. So hopefully that makes some sense. And I thought it was really important for us to talk about that right now, because we're right at the beginning of this process, and we want to make sure we're following some of those. And you could probably add to that list. It's not exhaustive, but we want to make sure that this plan will not fail, because you don't want to waste your time here, and I don't want to waste our time here or in future meetings. So failure, I always say failure is not an option. So let's get this right. So in that same vein, and we're going to collect your surveys in just a minute. Now we're going to take those surveys. We're not going to go over them tonight. We wanted you to spend some quiet time with yourself and your thoughts. We're going to collect them, and then our core team will go over them and analyze and incorporate some of your thoughts into it. So again, hopefully everyone online is looking at the survey. There is a link in the chat room, so please fill out that survey. For those online, we're going to go into a more interactive piece of tonight. And we're going to kind of talk about very small things that we would like to achieve. And the reason I want to say small is, doesn't mean that it's not meaningful, but I kind of just want to hear from everyone, based on what we just said about reality checks. And if you're online, answer this in the chat and we'll capture your thoughts. So what's the one thing that we could do tomorrow that would help your neighborhood? And that's what I want to do. So think about that. There is no wrong answer, or I haven't heard one yet when I ask questions like this. So if you could think of the one thing and say, oh, if we could do this, and it's something that's pretty immediate, you believe that is achievable, but apparently no one's thought of it yet, what would that one thing be? And you can't not have an answer, because I don't think that we would have been asked to do it if you thought, oh, and everything's good. I will not give you the microphone. We will not put the camera on. I will repeat. So if you're camera shy, I assure you I will not call you out if you don't want it.
So I travel Buffalo Road quite a lot because I work at St. James, and
I'll just give her the microphone.
Oh, see, I'm just lying. But that's like, no one's going to hear you. I'm like,
I travel a lot on Buffalo Road because I work at St. James School and travel through the city. And I really think Buffalo Road needs some kind of artistic flair. It needs safer sidewalks, because there's a lot of walking that people do, but there's areas where there are no sidewalks or sidewalks are uplifted. We need more litter being picked up along Buffalo Road. There's areas as Buffalo Road turns into East 18th Street. There's just a lot of litter that needs to be picked up. Affordable housing in this area. There's lots of land, I think, that could be developed. the old Burton School that is no longer being used, could be transformed, I think, into senior housing or type of residential housing, perhaps apartment living for low-income people. In my youth, I played tennis at the Roger Young Park. I don't know what the tennis courts over there look like now, but that area around Sidewalk Park, there's lots of things I could go on with, but I'll let someone else have a turn.
Okay, so Kathy's one small thing.
Sorry.
That's all right. Kathy's one small thing was Buffalo Road. And there's a lot of them. So I mean, Buffalo Road is not a bad target for this. Affordable housing, Burton School, and Roger Young Park. She took four pretty sizable things. But we could break those down, right? You could say, the Buffalo Road. And you said we would like to see more artistic or aesthetic, garbage. Pick any one of those, right? So we can pick that, and that's what we'll do, because Megan's taking copious notes and she's like listed all of those things. So that's what we'll break it down. Buffalo Road seems big, but it's like garbage, art. So sidewalk. That's what we'll do. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. All right. And did Kathy not hit something? Okay. All right. Do you mind if I give you a microphone?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
The two things I didn't hear mentioned that I've heard from people in the neighborhood, I'm Sister Michelle, I work at the House of Mercy, are lighting. That's been a big issue that got brought up. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of empty lots, so people don't have houses next to each other. And that's why it appears darker, especially on the side streets, not next to Buffalo, not on Buffalo Road, but on all of the streets, like especially on June Street, and some of the other streets, like 26th Street, on the other side of Buffalo Road is another example where there's very limited lighting. So that was one thing I heard. And then from the youth, and maybe they want to speak, but a lot of youth in this neighborhood really like to play soccer. And so like, where can they safely play soccer? Like the Roger Young Park has like basketball courts, but I don't know that it has a soccer field. So that is a very popular sport, especially among the new Americans.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you for that. Linda?
We also mentioned a clinic. Instead of people having to go downtown or far away from their homes.
Health plan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all a good, like I said that they could go small. We can get there, and I think Kathy showed how we can do that beautifully. Who else? I feel like I want to pick on the other people.
Go ahead.
And so ask if you have any ideas, and if you don't want the microphone or the camera, you can just yell them out and I'll repeat them. Any ideas? If you like these ideas, is there anything that stands out to you that you would like to see a small change in your neighborhood?
And you can repeat something that you think is really important.
Because we're really building these neighborhoods for you. Yeah.
It was also mentioned.
Do you want the microphone? Okay.
I would just have to like for example, for me, like sometimes when I'm driving, it's hard to see because there's not any lights on Buffalo Road, so but most of the time when the lights are there, they're not like bright enough. And I would have to agree with the idea of the soccer is a popular sport with Latin Americans, so I mean there's like tennis courts and basketball courts. I think it would be nice to see like a soccer field somewhere around here where like a lot of us can get this right.
Okay. So soccer and lighting was reiterated for those online. Are there any other ideas that we haven't hit on that you'd like to bring up?
We also talked about a library in this field.
Okay, library. Does the bookmobile come out this way?
I don't know.
It does.
It might go to the
Oh,
JFK
JFK,
Center.
it might go to
It
JFK.
might go to JFK.
Right.
Those in some of the developments, the after school programs and things of that nature. So it's, I think it's equipped with mostly books, but it's, if I'm correct, but I could easily be wrong about that.
And then some of the, of course, the main library at Glasgow, they have a computer lab. Do you have a computer lab?
We do, it's dismantled at the moment, but it's about to be back together.
And is it open for the public?
Yes,
Anyone
people
can-
can come here to do faxing, printing, copying, we're really pretty liberal with that. And it's a big need that people have, especially in the New American community, the need to copy and color important documents that are for applying for citizenship, driver's license, all that stuff. So we do all those things. And then we have 29 computers in the back that are about to get to that.
That was a description of the computer lab that's available to the public. It's probably like center dismantled now, so don't rush down and you hear that for the first time, but it will be back up and running
Couple weeks.
in a couple of weeks. So those are all great things. So I like that idea, I appreciate that comment. Anything else before we move on? Okay. And again, this isn't your last time. We're going to be back, and you also have, at your next Eastside Grassroots Coalition, continue the conversation. All right. Well, that gives us a good starting point for the rest of the planning work. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Erie, who's going to talk about, we've been doing data collection. We're going to do even more during the planning process, hopefully involving young people, giving them some training, introducing them to GIS. That is our hope. We're able to pull that off. But Erin's going to talk about the blighted or the property conditions survey that we've been doing, talking to the city, and show you some of the results of what we found in Fairmont, Mclellan.
So, like Kathy said, this is one way that we try to take what feels like a very big problem and make it manageable. And part of the way that we do that is by collecting a lot of data at the beginning. Shop has actually helped us with this in the past. She's been out with us a couple times this summer to collect data. And what we do is we go house by house and we look at every residential property in a certain area. And we look at things like the roof, the walls, the windows, if there's any kind of junk and debris or trash outside of the property. And then we give it an overall rating. So we give it either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So 1 is the best, and that's in the darker color of green there. That means that there's no issues with the property. And then every color down from there to red, 5 means that that property probably should not be lived in. It has a lot of major issues. Maybe the roof or the windows are boarded. There could be any major problem with that property. So this is the map in the middle there gives you a view of each dot is a house, and each color, like I said, represents the condition of the property. So we did 2,000 surveys in this neighborhood over the last couple of months, and the pie chart in the upper left gives you an idea of how well the housing stock is doing here. So about 60% of the properties in this neighborhood are actually in excellent and good condition. So that's really great in terms of having a stabilizing force in the neighborhood for housing. That's a really good sign. 9% of the properties are poor or unsound. So that means that there's something major with the property that needs attention. So again, things like roofs or windows. So that is usually where we start when we're looking at where can we make an impact, and where can we focus our efforts to make sure that those properties are either boarded up so that they're safe and kids don't wander in, or if they need to be acquired and demolished, we can focus our efforts, especially if they're vacant. That's another thing that we look at when we're looking at properties is there anybody living there? And sometimes it's hard to tell from the sidewalk, but we make a best guess if there's mail overflowing or if it's completely boarded up, and that's a pretty good sign. But there's about 20 properties that are really bad condition and are also empty. So that's the place where we would start with code enforcement and with the Blighted Property Review Commission. And we would say, okay, these are priorities. We know that they're empty. The owner may or may not be still taking care of the property. We're making progress on it. So that's where we would take those properties to code enforcement and say, here's our list of 20, let's go after these ones and just get an update on where they are. Maybe they don't, maybe the person's making progress and we can say, okay, at least they're in the system, but we need a place to start. So that's where we usually start with the very deteriorated properties.
You want me to go small?
Hmm.
I've never driven this one before.
Yeah.
We can look, you want
I think
to,
the other thing I'll point out, if you click on the owner tab, on the bottom left.
oh, okay.
So the other thing we can do is then break down between rental and owner properties and see, is there a difference in condition between properties that are owned by landlord and properties that are owner occupied. So the graph in the bottom right there, right now it's showing owner occupied conditions. And that looks pretty similar to what we saw in the overall conditions. I would say we have a majority of owner occupied properties. You still have rental properties in the area, and you also have public housing, which is in scattered sites. But another thing we can do is if we're looking at focusing our grant dollars, then we can let's look at the average properties that are owner occupied, because those are the properties that have minor problems. Maybe something just needs to be repainted, might need to reside something in a certain area. So those are the properties that we can focus on those ones. If there's certain corridors that we want to focus on, that gives us immediately so many properties that we can do outreach to. We could flyer those properties if we have grant dollars that are available. And that gives us a pool of owners to pull from. If we want to say we want to make a big impact, let's start with these property owners.
Anything about rental?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing about rental is that, I mean, like I said, you can break it down by condition again. And you saw, I mean, the owner occupied properties was about 60% was good and excellent. And for renters, or for landlord owned properties, it's about, what is that?
45%.
About 45%. So that's a pretty significant decrease of properties that are in good condition for people to choose from when they're renting in this neighborhood. So that would be something that we want to focus on as well. Making sure that all of those properties are in good condition, that are registered rentals for in the city. The only other thing I'll mention with the property condition survey is that we do, like I said, track whether there's junk and debris outside. So we have a record if it's a vacant lot or if it's a property, if it's owner occupied, if it's vacant. And then we can say, okay, well, we know that there's junk and debris, or there was at the time of the survey. Let's follow back up with those and see if that has been cleared out. It might be a mattress on a vacant lot, it might be tires. So we would want to follow back up with all of those and just make sure that those are cleared. So we have the record now, so we can go back and check that all of those are taken care of. So that's how we take a big problem like blight and we try to break it down using data and make it really actionable moving forward.
Anything else?
Anything else? No, I'm good.
All right.
I forgot one thing. One thing that was, in fact, it was brought up, we spent the major time at our last Eastside Grassroots meeting talking about it, and it's come up several times, is dumping in this neighborhood. And there's a lot of dumping in the kind of like empty lots that are like, what, 20th Street or something? Around here, there's like a whole bunch. And then on the other side of Buffalo Road, a lot on 26th Street. So,
And so the illegal dumping.
Between 18th and 17th
Yeah.
June.
yes,
That wooded area.
yes, that's the
area.
one I'm talking about.
Yeah. So if you see that, the best way, and then we can work on, some other solutions, but contact Citizens Response Center, Monticello, 870-1111. Or you can, if we're rather go online at the City of Erie, you can also log concern into there. And what happens is that immediately goes to code enforcement, and then they'll go out and check the problem, and then start the process. So that's just for those who didn't know that Citizens Response Center is the way. Yeah, I know that.
The one neighbor was complaining that she had taken pictures of the license plate. Like the problem is, like, she was told when she called that you have to catch the person actually doing it. You have to be able to identify them by their license plate or somehow have a camera. Does the city have cameras that you put up in places where there's dumping? I thought I had heard that before.
Well, they have in the past used like hunting cameras, which are static, takes pictures, so that could be something. We would have to know who the property owner is in order to put a camera on their property. So I don't know who these vacant lots are owned by. But we could certainly look into that, and if they're willing, you know, honestly, the owner of that lot is responsible because someone's coming onto their lot and dumping illegally. So what property maintenance or the inspectors do is they contact the owner. So the owner is ultimately responsible for this happening. They have to monitor. So that's the term. I mean, if they want assistance, we might be able to help them.
Yeah, the other issue related to that is we have a lot of properties where like people have like heavy machinery and things like that, that is just stored like across from the JFK Center. There's that big fenced in area. They sometimes have it. In our area across from 26th Street, there's a bunch of empty lots that have heavy machinery. Just kind of, they've been there, it doesn't seem like it's usable, I don't know, but it's been there for a long, long time.
Yeah, I'm not, I might know what that is, but, well, so that would be a zoning issue, and Megan's taking copious notes and we'll follow up with the zoning officer about that. Large machinery being placed on vacant lots. Was a concern. Okay, thank you for that. I know we're kind of getting close to time, and I probably have more slides you want to see on the active Erie plan, but I did want to, this plan was just finalized back in February of this year. And what it's designed to do is to create a network of bike and pedestrian facilities that makes this entire city more walkable and allows people to get where they need to go in a safe and convenient manner. So it looks at, like I said, it's a citywide plan. And for me, this is one that was done in that realistic way, because it was done in a way that looked at what are small changes that can be done to the system now that would help, because the city doesn't have a lot of resources to put towards bike lanes, and especially particularly ones that cost a lot of money. So this approach was took what's called a level of traffic stress approach. And our consultants were very good at explaining this process, and it was embraced. It started with, and I just kind of want to point out to everyone, you can kind of see the Fairmont Mclellan area, a lot of data analysis. What you see in the red, those hot spots, those are gaps in sidewalk. And what's so kind of telling for your neck of the woods, your neighborhood, is there's a lot of sidewalk gaps, and you this is not a surprise to anyone. So there's hot spots, sidewalk gaps in the Fairmont Mclellan planning area that were identified as challenges that need to be addressed. And I think that will be a topic that we'll undertake throughout this process. But I just kind of wanted to show you what the outcome of that was. But this is a pretty comprehensive collection of where sidewalks are and where they're not. This also shows it kind of breaks it down, and I'm going to forget what each slide is, so I'm going to have to look at it. Percentage of population with disabilities. You can kind of see over in that Fairmont McLellan area, there is a higher percentage of people with disabilities who do live here. So walkability, getting around through other alternative modes is really important to this area. So we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. In addition, this is percent of population that is 65 years and older. And a little bit, but not as much. You actually have more in with young people, which I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with. Higher percentages of older elderly people above 65 in our downtown and in Frontier Park. So where Mayor Shimmer lives, you would agree. He hits that category. You do have a higher percentage of people of dependent age, so 18 and younger, and then 65 and older. So you do kind of hit that mark. This is 38 to 41%, almost half are dependent ages. Again, looking at why mobility alternatives are so important. And then percent of households with no vehicles available. What's so surprising is some of these areas have very high percentage of people who do not have a vehicle. You can see that in our downtown area. Here, it's not so bad. It's about 7% have no vehicles. Doesn't mean, there's still young people who need to be served, and those who do not have access to a vehicle that can be served well by this plan. So, level of traffic stress. So kind of just to give you a brief understanding of what that means is we look for roadways that, because of low traffic, their design, there's not a lot of stress. You feel fairly comfortable not being an avid biker biking on down those roads. So we look for those who are, the level of traffic stress is 1 or 2. And then we try to identify those we feel can be utilized now pretty easily with very little modification. And then we focus on the barriers. So like the 12th Street, that is not a very walkable. That is a barrier between islands that are easy to get around and islands that are not. So what the white lines show, where those are all the barriers. Those are the roads that have a lot of traffic. And so they kind of cut you off from going from place to place. So this plan looks at focusing on modest improvements to the low stress streets, and then finding out where those barriers are. In the Fairmont Mclellan, this is not going to be a surprise. So Buffalo Road and 12, and the parkway itself, even though it has a trail system. But crossing those roads, a lot of traffic, a lot of problems. So that we would look to how do you cross those roads easily and and make that much more manageable. And that's what this plan would do. Well, I want to, even though this was, I want to kind of give a shout out. This again was another Frank moment. Frank Strulo moment is like, okay, we cannot have in-person workshops. What do? We wanted to get hit hit the road to get as much information as we could from people. We had to try to meet people where they were, and so we did a all-day mobile workshop. We stopped. We all got on our bikes. Frank was in his car with his camera, and we stopped at 6 different locations throughout the entire city. A 15-mile ride by the end of the day.
It was really easy for me.
It was, but you were in the car. That's right. It was easy for Frank. It really wore me out. I run, but I don't ride bikes very well. So it really took its toll. But it was really great to see how this network would work, and to get the feedback from the people. And we had 3,000 or so actually watch the events online. They were probably watching people fall off their bike and stuff like that. Which did happen. Too soon. Anyway, so I just want to give you well, we did have an online survey. So this is a representation of the overall recommendations. The pale green or the teal, those are streets where we've dedicated as a east-west or north-south bike route, but don't need a lot of work. Those are roads that with a bike lane that's on the road or a share can be a nice way to get around the city. The ones in the fuchsia, so that would be 6th Street is if we're looking over on the east side, 6th Street along the north, and then we go, and then that's really, and then 38th Street in the southern portion is the east-west routes that affect your neighborhood. And then those are the bigger projects. They take, so we did include aspirational projects. Those would take some money. You got to move some curbs. You got to have a dedicated bike lane, because they are, what was important is they do get you across town, either north, south, east, west, but because the road is so narrow or it doesn't allow for it, you have to move curbs and things like that. So we do have about 5 or 6 aspirational projects, but for the most part, what would affect and be important for you to sort of keep your eye on is those teal projects, and that's Downing would be the north-south, McClellan, I don't think McClellan's on there, Bird, and then east-west is Fairmont Parkway is where we would put sharrows or bike lanes, and I'll show you some quick representations of that. So here's all of the east-west bikeways, and you can see there would be 5 total throughout the city. 6th Street has probably the oldest longstanding bike lane. And so we would look to do things like that on most of those east-west routes, except 38th Street. And here it actually breaks it down. So this plan is available. And in each bikeway section, there is an existing curb to curb width. And then here's what the recommendation is. And some of it is a 6-foot wide bike lane. Some of it is a sharrow. So I just want you to sort of orient you to this plan. We can also go back. And then it actually gives you a diagram of what that means. So bike lane, again, you can see the one the diagram on the left-hand side. That's a bike lane that would be striped. And the cars know where they're supposed to go, and the bikes know where they're supposed to go. And that's what that represents. The one on the east shows where on-street parking exists, a bike lane, and then the roadway itself. So next one is, I think, the north south. Oh, that just shows 38th Street or 28th Street specifically. And then the 38th Street is a little more challenging. There's sharrows there now in parts of it, but that's going to be much more challenging. But it does give us a complete from one side of the city to the next. It's almost a near complete track, so that's why it's chosen. And then the north-south again, we do have East Avenue. It does meander down the Parkway, and then East Avenue North is a preferred route down and then Bird Drive, which is what we talked about. We did start. Let's see. Here we stopped at Mclellan. We stopped at Wayne East Middle School in this sort of area, and we did go down the avenue in our mobile workshops. So that was a lot of fun. And then this just kind of, again, shows you what's proposed. Downing would be 10-foot travel lanes and 6-foot bike lanes. So I give a sense of what proposed for Downing. Bird Bird would be sharrows. So that just is an indication that bikes are permitted and for people to respect them as they were before. So I just gave you a tutorial of the Act Erie, and I think Gary still has all of our displays because I think we left them here. But if you want to know more about, you don't have to bring them out, Gary. But I did leave them here because I think we had the mobile workshop like the day before or something like that. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that plan exists and that we'll be looking to elevate those recommendations within this strategic plan. So we want to incorporate them. So right now I'm going to turn it back over to Erin. Sorry, I'm losing it.
okay.
And she's going to just talk about some next steps for you.
Okay, so just to orient you a little bit, so this is what the plan will eventually look like. So what we're going to do is, like Kathy said at the beginning, we're going to set measurable, attainable goals, and we're going to call those benchmarks. And we're going to give ourselves a 5-year timeline to do those things. So this is an example that I pulled from the plan that we just finished in Academy Martintown. So we set ourselves goals or benchmarks for things like property and housing conditions, like we just looked at with the dashboard. Infrastructure, so parks and sidewalks and streets and lighting, crime and safety, community organization, and economic development. So we set ourselves measurable goals. How many properties are we going to acquire and demolish? How many properties are we going to put before the Black Review Committee? So we set ourselves and give ourselves numbers for those things, and we say how many are we going to do in the first year, how many second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. We have a total number overall. So just some examples of what we did in Academy Martintown. So the number of housing units that we brought up to code, the number of unmaintained vacant lots that are mown more regularly. So we, like I said, we try to set ourselves goals, and then we would meet regularly to see, are we meeting those goals? We need to change our approach for certain things. So just some more examples of what the plan will look like in a couple of months. And again, some different benchmarks for different categories for things.
So one example for us would be, in one of the studies we've done, is identifying areas that don't have a sidewalk. where kids could go back and on the walk route, for kids that go to school. That would be something that we could identify as a priority and then set a measurable goal, how many sidewalks to do this year or next year or whatever.
Yeah, so I'll just repeat for people online. So Gary mentioned that an attainable goal that we could do immediately would be to track where are those sidewalks that either we don't have sidewalks or they need to be better maintained. And then we're gonna set ourselves a goal for how many, you can say how many feet of sidewalk are we gonna replace or create this year. So that would be an example of an infrastructure benchmark that we would set and set an attainable goal for ourselves for that. And then looking forward to our schedule, we're hoping to have the plan done and in front of City Council by October. And what we're gonna do in the meantime is we'll have these monthly core team meetings, and that's gonna be with Inside Grassroots Coalition, so Gary and Sister Michelle and Linda. And we're gonna sit down every month and just make sure that we're on track with the planning process, that we have core meeting the things that we need to get done. So that's where you see core team meeting, that's gonna happen every month. And we'll also come back to these meetings every month and make sure, give you a briefer update than tonight. We'll give you a brief update about where we're at in the planning process, so you know that the place and we're moving forward. So we'll start drafting that this month, and next month we're gonna start writing the plan. And then in July, we're hoping to do, like Kathy mentioned at the beginning, a little youth engagement project, and that's gonna include some kind of GIS, so geographic information systems, that's mapping and data collection. So we're hoping to give youth some training in that program, and it could be around trees, it could be around dump sites, but we're gonna hopefully know more about that by July. We're also hoping to hold a neighborhood business meeting with local business owners in the area. There's a lot of businesses in the area, especially on Buffalo Road. And we want to make sure that they're included and that they feel like they're part of this neighborhood and that they take responsibility for their part in the neighborhood as well. So hopefully we'll be holding that sometime in July. And then in August, we'll come back and we'll do a bigger meeting like this at this meeting, to give you an update about where we're at and show you some example projects that we would hope to be a part of our plan. So those benchmarks that we just looked at, we want to present those back to you and get your feedback on what you think. If those are accurate, if you think we can do that, if we need to be think bigger, we would talk about that in August. And then once we take your recommendations, we would edit the plan, make sure that it looks okay, and then we would present that to the Planning Commission in September. And if that's approved, then we would take it in front of City Council for their review and resolution in October. So that's our goal for moving forward in our timeline. And then after that, we have to do the plan. So that's after October. That gives you an idea of where we're headed.
Yeah.
We'll close this out.
Sure. Yeah, close this out. Thank you for that, Erin. Yeah, that wraps us up. We've got a lot of work to do. That's why we want to do this kickoff meeting. Hopefully everyone has given Megan your surveys, and I don't know, hopefully everyone online has taken the survey. I didn't see that we got any chats, any questions in the chats. Okay, great. And you'll be seeing us more. We'll be back in touch at your monthly meetings, doing check-ins, and we're going to get to work with the team at the Grassroots Coalition. Thank you for your time. We still have sun up, so we can still enjoy it a little bit. And I don't know if Gary wants out the door, Veronica, Linda, anyone wants to say anything, or if you want me to close it out. Gary's
Let's give a hybrid in-house applause to the city for their presentation. We want to thank the technical people, but we know that is not easy to do. And we also want to thank the young people. And those of you that are still online, and those of you who are still working on making our neighborhood better. We expect you to ask questions and make suggestions also. And that some of us may not be around in 10, 15, 20 years when these things take root and have transformed our community. But you young people can look back and see and remember the role that you played in it.
and encourage other young people to do the same. With that, I think I was asked to talk about to do a call out to vaccinate. Don't hesitate, vaccinate. The sooner that you test and get informed, take advantage of the opportunities to get a shot, the sooner we'll get back to some degree of normalcy. In that none of us expect to go all the way back to the way things were, and that we're wiser today. And we know that we don't have to have a virus come to tell us to wash our hands, to teach our young people to do that, and to be careful about your distancing with people for the short term. And so on tomorrow, at the corner of 6th and Parade Street at the Rite Aid, we're going to be providing a vaccination for those in the Lower East Side neighborhood. You don't need any pay or anything like that. You just need an arm, a willing arm. And if you're 12 to 18, you need your parents and your parents' permission in order to get it. But anybody 12 and up that would like to get the vaccine, the corner of 6th and Parade at the Rite Aid will be doing that in an effort to get people to vote and to get vaccinated under the guise of the NAACP and Black Voters Matter Coalition. Also, from 1 to 4 o'clock on tomorrow, we're going to be having a Get Out the Vote rally at the Booker T. Washington Center. An effort, again, by the Minority Community Investment Coalition, the African American Concerned Clergy, the Divine Nine, the WERG Radio, Super Soul Saturday 90.5, your local branch of the NAACP, and Black Voters Matter. And we have a musician coming in from Kansas City who's a new American, born in South Sudan, raised in Erie, Pennsylvania, living in Kansas City today. We're going to have a free food distribution, a box of food with milk and cheese and potatoes or onions and yogurt and chicken or hot dogs for any family in need of a box up to a certain number. And we're also going to have a pop-up, an opportunity for minority and women businesses in the community to come and hustle up some of their wares like they do. Those of you who travel internationally, gone to the islands and other communities, and you see how people come out and set up and sell their wares, jewelry, clothing, perfume, oils, soap, candles, you name it. Very creative on their part. And so we'll have some new American and some other minority businesses doing that. But the bottom line is, come on, folks, do the right thing, get the vaccine. Don't hesitate, vaccinate. With
I have a
that,
question.
yes, ma'am.
This vaccine tomorrow, I know of a person that only got the first one and was sick, and she had to cancel the second one. Can they tomorrow get the second one? Or is
It depends on which was the first. The question was, a person that got the first shot and missed the second shot, can they come tomorrow and get their second shot? Only if it's the Pfizer vaccine. If it's one of the other vaccines, no, they can't. But for that person or anybody in that position, if you contact us here at the E.F. Smith Quality of Life Learning Center, we'll be happy to coordinate their getting their second shot. There is a way to do it, either through Allegheny Health Network or through UPMC Hammett or through LECON. We know on the first time we have an opportunity to do that. And also we know that Rite Aid and Walmart or other agencies providing the vaccine in Erie, as well as Community Health Net and Primary Health Net. But that's an excellent question. If you took the first shot and you missed the second shot, for any reason, you contact us and we'll facilitate your ability to receive that second shot. Any young person, if you're playing a sport in school, you're singing in the choir, you want to get back to normal, you want to just hang out on the corner like we all did when we were kids and that. Make sure your block get vaccinated. Make sure your corner get vaccinated. Make sure your housing development that you live in get vaccinated. Make sure your neighborhood, your block, your family get vaccinated. That's how we're going to get back to normal. We don't have to get everybody vaccinated, but we got to get the most of the people vaccinated. And so we're looking for people who are willing to do that so that we can get back to some degree of normalcy. Any other questions? Again, let's give the city of Erie a round of applause. We thank them for coming this evening and the presentation. Look for it on the city's Facebook channel. Yes?
And YouTube.
And on YouTube. And if you have any questions, give any one of us a telephone call and we'll be happy to accommodate you. Madam President, would you like to say anything? Come on down. Come on down.
No, I don't want to.
No, we gotta put you on television. We want the people to see.
Yeah.
Oh, he can swing the camera.
Yeah, I can do
around?
it.
Okay. Okay, come on down. We want the people to see our revitalization.
Are there any first timers that, first time they've been to our breast meeting?
First time, we have a young lady in the back.
You're more than welcome to come to every single meeting. And young folks, we need you. We need you. This is a community and we need our young people. Just like Gary said, hey, even me, I might not be around tomorrow. We need our young people to step up to the plate. Your voice matters also. And thank you again for coming.
City, anything else? Okay, young people, anybody want to say anything about the young people? No? Sister Joanne?
No.
Sister Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Horton, for having us here.
Oh, hey, that's what we're here for. We couldn't do it without you. I want to thank our staff and that for coming and facilitating the participation of the people on my name. God bless everybody. Have a good evening and don't forget to vote. Exercise your right to vote. You can literally make a difference and choose who the people will be that represent us. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Good night.